hire me, along with another guy named James Carville, who I believe had the same campaign track record as me. We teamed up with Casey, and he won his primary and general election. We were hot stuff, and my wife, Julie, and I and James moved to D.C. Not into the same apartment. Get your filthy minds out of the gutter. I moved up from local campaign hack to being a national political media guru at a top consulting firm named Doak, Shrum and Associates. I was half of the associates, the other being Steve McMahon. The differences between a hack and a consultant are better suits, a company credit card, and having people more likely to believe my bullshit. My friend, Donna Brazil, said that political consultants back then were all basically fat white guys in suits. I was not fat. We were, however, white boys in suits. I ended up doing pretty well at national strategy, making TV ads and handling debate prep, and got to meet some amazing people, as well as a few candidates best described as empty suits. In 1990, one of my clients, Senator Paul Simon, who was not an empty suit, was asked to do the gridiron speech. The gridiron, like sex after age 60, is a much-anticipated once-a-year event, except this one has an audience. All the big-deal political reporters put on skits, and then a member of each party, one Democrat and one Republican, are expected to give funny speeches. Paul called me and said, "John, you're funny. Write some jokes." Paul thought I was funny, based on the day when he and I were driving back from a speech he gave, and we passed a car with a bumper sticker that read, "Save a tree, eat a beaver." Paul suddenly said, "Why would anyone want to eat a beaver?" I did what I do best in moments like this. I pretended to be asleep for the next 10 minutes, as Chuck the driver explained the difference between the beaver on the bumper sticker and the furry little creature with big teeth. Silence for the next hour of the drive, as Paul contemplated an act that had not heretofore entered his mind. At the end of the drive, as he got out of the car, he turned to us and said, "I still can't understand why anyone would eat a beaver." Regardless, two things happened. His wife, Jean, looked really happy the next time I saw her, and Paul decided I was funny, because I laughed at his "I still can't understand why anyone would eat a beaver" line. So he asked me to write some jokes for the gridiron. Here's where it gets interesting. Paul gives the speech and it kills. Mr. Deadpan in the bow tie is now Shecky Green. Frank Mankiewicz, who put together the speech, called afterward to say my jokes were great and I ought to do this for a living. At that point, I figured maybe that was Frank's very nice way of saying I was a really bad political consultant. So that was in the back of my mind in 1991 when I saw Jay Leno perform his stand-up act at Wolf Trap in Vienna, Virginia. I was completely blown away. It was the best stand-up act I ever saw. The timing, the jokes, the performance, the delivery, and his show was timeless. There was nothing topical about it. This was before he had been named to take over The Tonight Show from Johnny. In the Washington Post the morning of Jay's performance was an article saying Jay bought jokes from freelancers. So what the hell? I sent in some jokes and got a freelance agreement back in the mail. Whoa, I figured, I'm hot stuff. They must be having big meetings at NBC about me and my incredible talent. Only later did I find out that I was one of 900 freelancers who had the standard agreement. If Jay used a joke, I'd get $50. So I sent in my first batch, and on July 11th, 1991, when he was still guest hosting for Carson, I heard him use one of my jokes. There was a solar eclipse today. This throws everything off when it gets dark in the middle of the day. The birds stop chirping, the cows come in from the pasture, the hookers come out in Times Square. That was it, the worst joke ever written. And then the check came for $50. I was a professional comedy writer. I felt like the first girl off the bus from Minneapolis in L.A., who now gets paid for the sex act she did back home to all the guys for free. I framed the check until my wife said, "Idiot, you make a copy and frame it. Cash the actual check." So I kept sending in jokes for the one day a week Jay would guest host, and he would use one or two a week. Then he was officially named Johnny Carson's replacement starting the following May, and he did an entire week of shows in October while Johnny took a break. That week he used 5 of my jokes and sent me a bonus check. It was fun. I'd write jokes on the plane as I would fly from state to state doing ads in U.S. Senate and governor's races. Go into the hotel, pay the desk clerk $10 to let me